Welcome back to Modern Survivability. Think fast, think accurate. Today what we're going to be doing is going over my get home bag, so stay tuned. Alright, so thanks for coming back to the channel. Today we're going over my get home bag that I carry every day, everywhere I go pretty much. We're going to break it down a little bit. Like I said, it's my get home bag, not a bug out bag, not an inch bag, not one of these other end of the world bags. It's just a daily carry, okay, to complement my EDC that I carry on my person at all times. Alright, so first things first, this bag is made by a company called Highland Tactical. It's a Highland Tactical Foxtrot. All right, it's not a Maxpedition or one of those other super high-end bags, Mystery Ranch or Everly Stock or one of those, but it works. I've had this thing for probably about 4 or 5 years now. Works great. All right, so it is a 20-liter pack, and we're gonna break this down and show you what's inside. All right, so before we dive into the actual big clamshell part of this, we're going to talk about the pockets that are on the outside. This bag has 2 pockets on either side, right? Here and one on this side. Cool thing about these pockets, let me open it up here. That's where I carry my water, right? And we'll talk about why I use smart water in a minute. So we got one on either side, right? I carry one full and one empty. And like I said, we'll discuss that in a minute, okay? All right, so the rest of the pockets on the outside. On the front up here, do know that we have some Molly-like webbing on the front, so you can attach pretty much anything you want. We also got some other webbing up here, so you can attach other things to the pack. Me personally, I carry a couple of carabiners. Now, both of these are climbing rated carabiners. All right, using smaller non-climbing rated carabiners is stuff that we reserve for some of the smaller things inside the pack, so we don't get them confused. I carry the climbing ones on the outside. In this front pouch, it's just kind of like an admin pouch with a couple of small things. First, foremost, I carry another small survival kit. We're not going to actually dive into this one, but it carries all your basic things, right? That's just in case, for whatever reason, I need to leave this bag and just put something in my pocket. I can walk away with at least a small survival kit. This front pouch up here, we carry pens, pencils, right, Sharpies, and a spork. Never leave home without a spork. You'd be surprised when you need a spork. Okay, put that back in there. I also carry a little admin pouch that has a Rite in the Rain notebook in it with some other pens and pencils. All right, in case I need to leave a note for somebody, in case this guy right here breaks down, or I need to take down some information for later. I got something to write it on. Always carry something like that. And make sure I've done a video on Rite in the Rain paper before. We can link that in the video. You can go check that out. I already did a review on Rite in the Rain notebooks, so you can check that out. This other pouch right here, carry a couple of medical things. Have an inhaler, right? Personal use, obviously. Have some medical issues or whatnot, but I do have an inhaler. I do have some liquid bandage spray, right? This stuff is amazing. All your little nicks and cuts, just spray that, clean it up, spray that stuff up, you're good to go. And in a situation like this where we find ourselves having to get home over a distance, it really helps to have something like this. And then I have an EpiPen, right? Now this is for someone who's going to be traveling with me that has severe allergies to certain things. I always carry one in all the vehicles and all the bags I have. So now we're going to check out this top pouch. Now this top pouch are for quick use items that I need to get to in a hurry. All right, first things we're going to pull out is your trusty Bic lighter. Never go anywhere without a Bic. I don't smoke personally, never have. I always have a Bic lighter. It's an easy way to make fire, and they're cheap. Next is a backup to that, and that is some stormproof matches. All right, and they come in this this is a Typhoon kit made by Zippo, ironically enough, not a lighter but matches. I got a review on this also on the channel that you can check out. I carry a Leatherman Wave, one of the best multi-tools in my personal opinion that I've ever used. I've had this particular one for well over 10 years. Works great. Carry a backup knife, right? Another Gerber, little small knife, right? In addition to the one I carry in my pocket. And I carry a small headlamp, right? It's a little Petzl headlamp. It's not very bright, but it's bright enough to do the things that I need to do, like really close in or whatnot. And I also carry a pair of headphones. That way I can plug them into my smartphone if I need to, or if I had to plug them into the radio, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that's in the bag. If my other one should fail, I got another way to listen to it. All right, now I'm going to open it up real quick and show you what's inside. So one neat thing I like about this, and a bunch of bags are doing this nowadays, they have clamshell designs. Some of them are top load or whatnot, things like that. But this particular one is clamshell, like a bunch of your other ones that are on the market. It's one reason I like this. I can either open it up a little bit at the top, or I can open it up all the way and get to anything I need to real quick. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you the last pouch that is part of this particular bag, and then we're going to jump into the little individual modules that I have inside. So this right here is my tool pouch. It carries all my tools and utility things that I would need in a situation like this. So first thing is a Mora Bushcrafter Black. One of the best knives, hands down, I've ever used. Super sharp. As you can see, I've used this one quite a lot. It also comes with a ferro rod and a somewhat decent knife sharpener on it. Super sharp, super great knife. They're relatively cheap. I think when I purchased this one, they were about 45, 50 bucks. I think they're a little bit more now, but you can get a basic Mora that doesn't have the fire starter and the knife sharpener for like 20 bucks. So great knife. Next thing, and this isn't necessarily one thing that everybody will put in a get home bag. It's more of a bug out bag thing, but because of where I live in the terrain that I would have to cross to get home if I were on foot, this is one thing I have. And it's just a simple folding pocket saw. Now there's a ton of different ones on the market. This particular one I think came from Academy. They're pretty cheap, but they work great. They'll cut down a pretty good size branch, and you would use that for maybe if you had to build an impromptu shelter on the way home. You shouldn't. Most people shouldn't have to, depending on how long your journey is. Mine's not that far, so I wouldn't probably necessarily have to do that. But if I needed to maybe process a little bit of firewood or something like that, should I catch myself overnight and need to in a particular spot, I do have it. It's pretty lightweight, so I don't mind throwing it in there. The next thing is a small pry bar. Now, because I do have to cross certain areas that are somewhat suburban like, I may need to get through some things. Now, I'm not advocating going out there breaking into anybody's stuff. Don't do that. It's illegal. And just wrong, but do have something that you could pry some stuff up with. And I might even need to use it to fix something on the vehicle should I find myself in that situation. And next is the actual module itself for tools, and I'm going to go over this, and then we're going to, like I said, we're going to dive into this. All right, so first thing, I do try to keep everything separated in the bag. I know it looks a little jumbled up here, but it's the way the bag sits, but it doesn't, that really doesn't bother me. It's still all organized relatively well. So in this tool module, a couple of things we got some Gorilla Tape. Can't go wrong with Gorilla Tape. Personally, I think it's better than duct tape. Sorry, duct tape. Gorilla Tape wins. You can use it for multiple things on top of fixing things. You can also use it as a fire starter. It burns pretty well. Next thing is I have a little backup Gerber blade. Now this is more akin to a box cutter, so that's why I put it in the little tool section here. For those of you guys out there that don't know what this is called a Silcock key, or a 4-way water wrench. All right, on the sides of buildings, businesses, or whatnot, you might have to use one of their water spigots because they don't have handles on them. They're behind a little cover. You open the cover, and then you use this to turn on the water, just in case. Like I said, with the little pry bar, we're not going around stealing people's stuff, but it's worst case scenario, right? I have some zip ties in here. Always carry zip ties. And then another cutting tool I have in here, which is, like I said, it's kind of like the saw in the same sense. It might not be needed for a get home, but because of the area I live in, it very well may be. And that is a pocket chainsaw. Okay. Now, unlike the little wire saws that you see that come in some of these little survivor kits, it's just two little rings and a fine piece of wire. They do work. I found them more to be a gimmick. They'll work on really fine stuff, but if you want something that's going to cut some things down, this chain right here is from an actual chainsaw. Same kind they make on chainsaws. And it's got really good handles, so nylon webbing on it, so you can get a real good cut. And it cuts really well. I've used it before to process firewood. So, the tool pouch. All right, now this first pouch we're going to talk about is basically what I call an admin pouch, and it also has my navigation some of my navigation things in it. So I got this little pouch. Like I said, everything inside the bag is compartmentalized, so I can know exactly when I reach in, when I grab a specific thing, what I'm going to get out of that module, right? So for this one, it's going to be navigation and signaling, okay? One of the first things we have in here is a, serves double duty, which we'll talk about in a minute, is an actual map of the area on a bandana. Now, it's kind of hard to see, it's a little windy out here, but the double part of this being it's a bandana, which we can use for the water filtration process, putting it on top of a bottle, you know, getting all the floaties out the water that you put into the bottle to use to run the filter with. So, I mean, that is a thing. And then I also have a shemagh. Everybody knows, and they can be used the same way. I keep those up there because they're, for one, this one has a map on it. Now, yes, it's a map on a piece of fabric. I got that. I do have the backup map right here, and these are all the topo maps for the area that I'm in right now, right? I have all my routes and stuff already marked down here. I have a backup compass in this, and it's a waterproof bag. So, and like I said, we'll talk about those in a minute when it comes to the water filtration part. Next thing we have, as far as navigation goes, is a GPS, right? I carry a GPS. It's always up to date. Always update it, turn it on every now and again, do the updates on it. Things like that. I also carry extra batteries. I keep it in this waterproof pouch. Keep extra batteries, the belt clip, and all that other good jazz that goes with it. It has all the local maps for around here. It has everything marked, and all my routes that I have that are on this map are also in the GPS. Now, I tend to use the map before I use the GPS anyway. I just have the GPS as a backup. Now, when we talk about compasses, I have a basic base plate compass with the topo maps in here, that compass. But I also carry a military style compass, right? This particular compass, used it for years. It's great. Used other types of these. And it also has some things on there. If you need to know more about the lensatic compasses that the military uses, this particular style, go check another video out on it and kind of dive into that, because there's a lot that goes into it. I might do a video later, a land navigation video, and if I do, it will be using this compass. So we have that as far as compass. You got to know which direction you're going, right? Next, for signaling, I have a star flash signal mirror. Okay, super great piece of kit. This one also has a whistle on the end of it. Not the best whistle, but I got a backup for that. So, but star flash, man, you can see these things from miles away, especially if you got good sunlight or whatnot. Way next to nothing. Always got to have one of these. Next thing is a Fox 40 whistle. Okay, they're great. They're great. All right. That's another signaling thing, because you can only scream so loud, but a whistle can go a whole lot further. People might be able to, if somebody's looking for you, they might be able to find you if you're using a whistle. All right, it's kind of a common sense kind of thing. I just stirred up all the neighborhood dogs over there. You can probably hear them in the background. That's okay. All right, the next thing we have is my actual headlamp. Now, the one that I carry on the outside the bag is a quick use kind of thing, like if I need something while I got the bag on or whatnot. But whenever I get to where I'm going, if I have to stop and do something, that's kind of labor intensive or whatever, I'm going to switch to a bigger headlamp. This particular one has your regular white light. It has a strobe light, a SOS, a red light, a green light, and a blue light. So for those of you out there that don't know what the blue light's for, if you ever had to do any deal with any trauma victims or anything like that, anybody's bleeding, blood shows up really well up under a blue light. So something to think about. Next thing, as far as signaling and illumination goes, are chem lights. Now we got a regular chem light here, and we have, oh, what is this? It's an IR chem light. We're not going to dive into the whole night vision fiasco right now. Just know that if you're using certain types of night vision devices, then IR chem lights are great, because nobody else can see them unless they have night vision on. So, along with my chem lights, I also carry a small piece of 550 cord, right, that goes particularly with these in that particular pouch to use as a buzzsaw if I have to try to signal aircraft or anything like that. Should it ever come, you know, go that far, then I have something to be able to do that. And then finally, for this particular pouch and what I have in this module, all right, I have a couple of battery backups, right, for electronics. I got just one standard battery backup. I think it's 2,000 milliamps, and another 2,000 milliamps, except for this one actually has a solar charger on it. All right, it also has a flashlight, and it has 2 ports, so I could charge it, charge 2 devices at once. The cool thing about this is, like I said, it's solar powered. If I'm walking during the daytime, I clip that to the back of my backpack while I walk, and it charges while I walk. I always have battery backups. And with that being said, make sure you have the proper cables to charge the devices you need to charge, right? This is the only one I need right here. I've kind of pared everything down so everything takes the, I think it's USB-C or C-type cable. So everything I have takes this. So now that we've talked about signal, illumination, and navigation, we're going to move on to the next one. All right, so we're going to keep kind of those medical things to a minimum when it comes to some of the things I carry. Now behind me in my Jeep that I have behind me, I have a trauma kit that I keep in there anyway, right? I already have the medical, some medical things, more medical things already in the kit. Also I have a vehicle kit in there also. It stays with the Jeep at all times that has more of the same things in it, okay? So what we're gonna talk about is the medical actually keeping this back, all right? So one of the first things that you always need to have is some wet wipes. Might as well pause it for a second. Next, I have trusty Bic lighters yet again, right? I've already showed you one, here's some more. This particular one does have some duct tape wrapped around the outside. It's a good place to store it. You duct tape back as a backup fire starter. So something to think about. And then I have your standard ferro rod and striker, right? Ferro rods are amazing. I'm not going to strike it out here because everything around me is very dry. I don't want to burn down the whole neighborhood, but ferro rod, can't go wrong with it. Now, on the same note, and I have it up here with the fire starting stuff. Oh, forgot one. A Fresnel lens. All right, it's a magnifying glass. It fits in your pocket like a credit card. It weighs almost nothing, right? And anybody that's ever used a magnifying glass to try to start a fire, it does work, right? And these, I mean, you see how small it is, right? Pretty awesome. So that's the last of the fire starters. But like I was saying, as far as having to boil water, containers, one of the hardest things to replicate in an area that doesn't have anything around you, right? Can you try to purify water in a plastic bottle with a fire? I mean, I've seen some people try to do it. We're not going to get into that argument, right? But having a super lightweight cook kit, and this is an Esbit stove, okay? They take these little teeny tabs that fit in the bottom of here. You put this on it, you light it, it burns for about 4.5 minutes, just enough to boil some water, so you can maybe boil some water to help to clean it, to purify it or whatnot, and to get, you know, all the bad stuff out of it. Or maybe you want to, maybe you got like a freeze-dried meal or something you want to cook, right? So you need to boil some water to put in it. Either way, right? It's super lightweight. All this nests up inside of itself into a little package, and it weighs next to nothing. All right. I personally carry that. You don't have to. I mean, you might only be 5 miles from the house, or hell, you might be 100 miles from the house. So, you know, size is going to vary when it comes to this kit. So there's that. Now we're going to move on to the water. So the water I carry in the biggest blue pouch that I have in the bag, right? And what I like to carry, and I stand by these, are Sawyer filters. Now we have ones like this. This is the Sawyer mini filter. You have a Sawyer squeeze, and you have a couple of other varieties of them also. They come with lots of things. They come with this little bag, this particular bag. Put the dirty water in. The filter screws on the top. You squeeze the clean water out. Pretty simple, right? So when I was talking about earlier, the smart water bottles I keep one clean, or one empty, and I keep one full. I'm going to drink the full one first, and then I'm going to use either one of them to fill back up with dirty water. Now I got two things of dirty water, but this filter, ironically enough, it fits the best on top of a smart water bottle. I don't know about all the other ones. I've tried quite a few, and the smart's probably the best. You screw this on the top, and then bam, you filter it out, okay? And then you can use that Mark 1, have a clean bottle and a dirty bottle, and that's the reason I do that. I have a clean and a dirty bottle, and I always have water. All right, so Sawyer mini filter. These have an advertised use of, I want to say, like 100,000 gallons for one of these. I haven't drank 100,000 gallons through it, but I've been using them for years and they work. One thing about these, they do have ceramic filters. So if you're in an environment where it's super cold, make sure you keep this in your jacket at night, or keep it somewhere it's not going to freeze. After you use it, make sure all the water's out of it, because if water does get in here and it freezes overnight and it cracks the filter, you might as well not have a filter on it. So they also come with a cleaning plunger. And basically, this is so you can put clean water in your plunger and backwash the filter to get all the other stuff that come back out of it, and it makes your filter last longer. And finally, water purification tablets, right? Water purification tablets have been around forever. You take those, you put some dirty water, questionable water in the bottle. After you use a bandana to get all the sticks and dirt and stuff and bugs out the top of it, you put that in the bottle, you follow the directions on the back of the bottle, you put one tablet in, you follow the amount of time, then you put the other one in to get the medicinal taste out of it. bam, you got some potable water to drink. It ain't gonna taste the best, but it'll keep you alive. So there's your water, your fire, and your medical. All right, now we've come to some of the last modules that are in the bag, or the last modules in the bag. And first thing this particular module is that we're going to talk about is communication, right? Communication is super important. You could use anything from a Motorola, a two-way radio or something like that. Assuming the cell phones don't work, obviously that's going to be everyone's number one line of communication is a cell phone, right? But we're going to go ahead and assume the cell phones aren't working. So with that being said, the secondary communication, anybody knows what a PACE plan is, you always have your primary, your alternate, your contingency, and an emergency way to communicate, okay? So everybody's primary is always going to be what? Your cell phone. So for your alternate, right, it's basically my alternate and my contingency in this situation, all right, is a ham radio, okay? Some people, you might have a GMRS radio, which some of your walkie-talkies do have those that can transmit a little further out with more power. Like some of your higher-end Motorola's and things like that have a FRS and a GMRS setting on them. So on the FRS, it only puts out just a few, like a half a watt or something like that. That's your standard walkie-talkies. Anybody can use them, right? Your GMRS section, that's some of your upper channels on that particular radio, will transmit at a higher power, sometimes up to 5 watts. And with that being said, you do need a license for a GMRS. You can transmit a little bit further out. Okay, so radios are good to have, even if you only use it in a scanning function to see what's going on around you. Okay, so with that being said, this particular radio I got is a standard Baofeng UV5R, and I have this particular pouch set up. It didn't come with this pouch. I got this pouch from somewhere else, but I set it up as a comms pouch. Now I have the battery, the extended battery that comes with it. I have a backup battery for it. I have a headset. I have obviously the standard little rubber duck antenna that comes with it. I have some other cables that connect to some different communication devices in my vehicle. And I also have a whip antenna for it, which has a higher gain on it, and I can push out a little bit further if I need to. This particular radio, they're easily programmed, okay? And they, if you know what you're doing with the radio, they travel quite a distance. Now, for a ham radio, to be able to transmit on most of the frequencies that this radio offers, it does do other things other than ham. But for ham frequencies, you do need a ham license for the FCC, right? Now, that's assuming that the whole world hasn't gone to crap yet, and we're still, doing things. You do need a license, all right, to operate it. There's reasons behind that. But so my communications kit, as far as my alternate contingency, I do have a ham radio. I also have GMRS radio in the vehicle. I have 2 other radios in there to do other things. So this particular one stays with the bag. I always take it out every so often, make sure the batteries are charged, do a test on it, put it back in the bag, all right? And like I said, I carry extra batteries for it. And that, as far as comms goes, that's pretty much it, minus the apps that I use on the phone and the other radios I have in the vehicle. Now we're going to talk about shelter, because we haven't talked about that yet. We always talk about the rule of threes, like 3 seconds without air, or 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, possibly 3 weeks without food. But sometimes it could be, depending on where you're at and the conditions, the weather conditions outside, it could be 3 hours without shelter. It could be 3 days without shelter, but you need shelter nonetheless, right? So a couple of easy things. Mylar blankets, everybody has these, right? Super cheap. There's different varieties, obviously. These are some of the cheaper ones, but they do work in a pinch. You can use that as a reflective wall behind you if you have to build a debris hut or something like that in front of a fire. You can wrap yourself up. If somebody's going into shock, most of the time, EMT or something like that might actually put one of these, wrap them up in a Mylar blanket. I know we did it in the military quite a bit. However, the blankets we used were a lot thicker. You can get better ones. These are pretty cheap, $1 or so a piece, but you can get some that they might cost 30 bucks, but you can reuse them. These are pretty much single use. Push come to shove, you can also use it for signaling because it's very, very reflective, okay? The next part, I'm going to talk about some particular shelter setup I use in my bag should I need it, right, on the way home. And this right here is a survival hammock, right? And it basically is nothing but a big net. Has a couple of extra links of nylon rope in here with the rings and everything I need to put it up in between 2 trees, and it will hold you up, okay? And that way I can have something up off the ground. You never really want to sleep on the ground unless you absolutely have to, but I mean, so there's that. I carry this as a backup, so the SOL Escape Bivy. It's basically a Mylar blanket that's like a tube, like a sleeping bag, right? But it's made out of this stuff. This is my backup for my sleep system. All right, like I said, the hammock, and to go over the top of the hammock, I have a standard military poncho. All right, that's going to be my top. I set up a ridge line, in between two trees, because we do have enough trees around here that I can find a place to use that, right? Waterproof, keep me out of the rain, keep me out of some of the wind. And there's multiple configurations you can set it up depending on what kind of shelter you want to build. They're all around great things. And to top it off, I can use it as this primary function of an actual poncho, and it will cover my gear if I have to walk in the rain. So there's something to think about. So we talked about comms, we talked about shelter, and some backup signaling and whatnot. And that is the basis of the kit as far as the modules go. The last thing I want to talk about as far as this kit goes, this get home bag, is the fact that you didn't see any food in it, right? You saw a way to cook food possibly, but you didn't see any food in it. And the reason being is everybody likes different things, right? As far as food goes, everybody lives in a different climate. If you're somewhere where it's hot all the time, you can only put certain things in your pack, because if you leave it in your car during the daytime, while you go into school, while you go into work, while you go to church, while you go into Walmart, whatever the case may be, some of that stuff's eventually going to go bad. You have to rotate that food out. Now, everybody, like I said, likes different things. So just make sure you have something that's, calorie dense, right? Protein dense, if you can find it, and something that you will eat. Don't put something in there because, oh, I saw it on Amazon, it's a great survival thing, it says survival, I'm going to throw it in there, and you never use it, because when you go to need it, you're not going to like probably the way it tastes. So there's that. Whatever you put in there, make sure you like to eat, okay? And also make sure it can stand up to the elements that you're going to subject it to. Depending on how far you have to travel should something happens, it's going to depend on how much resources and supplies that you put in that bag. Which brings me to my last point. My bag's relatively small. I think it clocks in at about 13.8 pounds with with the one thing of water I got, right? Which is pretty light. I got to travel about 15 to 20 miles. It's not hard, right? If you work a long distance from the house, or you're on vacation and you're going to be using this maybe to get back to the house in a natural disaster or something like that, you got to think about what extra you have to put in there. That bag might get bigger, might get smaller. All right, so something to think about. And to top it off, I know I didn't talk about an actual sleep system in here, like a sleeping bag or whatnot. Now, granted, the SOL thing could double as that. It kind of does the same thing. But, people have, small sleeping bags or stuff like that. Your everyday carry, the things you have in your pocket, and the clothes you have on and have with you, be it a coat, a jacket, how I'm dressed right now because of the temperature outside, that's your first line of defense, right? That's your first level of shelter, always is. So make sure whenever you're thinking about these things every day when you walk out the door, that you're prepared for what could happen that day. So, yeah, that's those modules. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this off. I hope you enjoyed the video. But before we get out of here, I want to touch on a few final thoughts. For one, you'll notice this bag, right? It's not all the way full. There's a reason behind that. Never, ever, this goes with bug out bags, itch bags, whatever the case may be. Don't ever fill it all the way up. If you fill it all the way up and whatever reason on your journey to wherever you're trying to get to, you run across some supplies that you need more or something like that, they're not going to fit. Always leave a little bit of extra room in there. It's always a really good thing. And then to top that off, just make sure, like I said, with the food, you rotate it out and make sure you eat what you put in there, and likewise. So with that being said, remember that speed is fast, but accuracy is final. Stay safe, and remember, you are the last line of defense.